Time to build a gate. This gate will gate off my neighbor's yard and my empty lot. So the first big decision to be made is, will we make a swing gate or double swing gate or a sliding gate? We could easily make a sliding gate and have it follow this fence this direction. I think swing gates just look better. The disadvantage I have with a swing gate is that, one, it takes two operators. It's a little more money to invest in operators, and two, this is 20 feet wide almost, so it's going to be out 10 feet. So if the weight of the gate causes these columns to shift, yeah, that'll be a difficult problem to remedy. Whereas if you have a rolling gate, a slide gate, you can just adjust the rollers over the time. But I think we're going to go with the swing gates. I just think they look better. We put these brick columns in, I don't know, 4 years ago. Inside each column, well, before we did the brick, we stood up a 6-inch steel pipe. It goes down in the ground a pretty good bit, so there's a pretty good bit of concrete around the bottom. This steel, these hinge plates, are welded to that 6-inch plate. So when we hang the new gate, it won't be hanging from the brick. The weight will be transferred to the 6-inch steel pipe that's in the middle. We were smart enough to run some conduit under the driveways, so both brick columns are connected. So I can measure between the brick columns and get a width. What I'm not sure of now is how much room to allow for the hinges, and how are the hinges going to be attached to this steel that we have poking out of the brick. So I think what I will do is concentrate on building a hinge mechanism, and ideally it will be adjustable, and once that's done, then I can get a hard measurement for the two gates to go across the middle. Okay, my current plan is to use this tube for the fence frame. It's some sort of fence tube. I'll have to go to a fence company to get more of it. Then I'm going to weld this square stock to the interior perimeter, and I'm going to use highway mesh as a fill. I've got lots of this stuff. I don't even remember where it came from. It's really rusty, so I'm going to clean up a piece and see how it cleans up one, and how I can weld it, how well I can weld it to the round tube, because this is a really thin wall. The tube's fairly heavy. So I'm going to do a little test right now. Clean up a little short piece and do a little welding. Might even be easier to, if I could braze it, I wouldn't have to worry about removing the galvanized. That'd be kind of nice. But we'll see. So that was a pleasant surprise. 140 amps argon. It just brazes on there so fast. I'll have to get a little neater on the real gate, but that's the way we're going to head. I'm going to clean up a lot of this square stock this morning and then go buy some fence tube. Okay, 2 hours of unpleasant work later, I got these 8 all cleaned up, and the sun is encroaching, so it's time for me to run away.
Your eyes are bright, I swear this time you're different. The stormy clouds that stole your smile have lifted. Somehow remain
ready to drive across town with a 21 stick of pipe on my roof of my truck. Cross my fingers. I got the first 2 pieces cut. This will be the inside of both gates. And with an angle iron and a Sharpie, I've got a line straight down the center. And I'm going to use that line to make sure the 245s are copacetic. I don't have a metal cutting miter saw. I'm going to cut this with a grinder. So I'm going to go home and make like a little wooden jig to kind of help me keep my joints straight, as accurate as I can get them. So this is a little box I made up. I glued some boards together and I cut a 45 on each end with my miter saw at home. And it works, but it doesn't work. If you could really see the grinding blade, you can get a pretty accurate cut with it. I have a hard time getting to that position. I've exploded several of these wheels on this big grinder, so I'm kind of hesitant to stick my face too close to it. And then again, it doesn't cut all the way through. Then you got to pull the pipe out and finish it up. But, you know, it did the job. I'm done, but I do really need a good miter saw for cutting steel. Cut the 2 exterior verticals and the 2 interior verticals. The outside ones will be a little taller. And I've got my hinge figured out, I think. So if this is the flat bar that's coming out of the brick, I'm going to weld this vertical. This is 7/8, just a solid stock. And then this is a piece of pipe, and I'll weld the pipe to the side of the gate, and that'll be it, as simple as it can be. If I need to lengthen this to make the gate fit right, I can. If I need to shorten it, I can. If I need to put a spacer here, I can. I can also weld this a little bit offset, one way or the other, if the gates are twisted and don't line up right. But this is as simple as it gets, so that's the way we're going to go. And this takes up an inch of lay length, so now I can figure the length of the bottom cords of the gate. And hope I get that right. This is my math for the width of the gates. I hope I don't screw this up. It measures 18'9" on the ground, brick to brick. So if I divide that by 2, I get 9 foot 4.5 inches. So each gate needs to deal with 9 foot 4.5 inches. But the little hinge that's sticking out from the brick sticks out 1.5 inches. So we're down to 9 foot 3 inches. The hinge is 1 inch on each gate, so we're down to 9 foot 2 inches. And I want a 2-inch crack in the middle between the gates, so that's 1 inch on each side, so we're at 9 foot 1. And then I went over there and added it all back up together, and it worked. So I got my fingers crossed that I don't have something backwards in my head, and I'm gonna cut the bottom cords. Okay, I'm getting pretty good at this. I cut one in with the black line all the way horizontal. And it's hard to tell exactly when it's horizontal, but you can get pretty close. And then I hook my tape and measure my length, which happens to be 9 foot 1. And then this one, the little 9 foot 1 mark needs to be right here, and the horizontal mark needs to be right here at the same time. Put the clamp on it, and good to cut. Pipes can be a little tricky to clamp down and get them in place when you want to do a weld. So what I'm doing is I have a weight on that end, and I set up the joint with a little bit of crack, and I put a weight on this end, and I have it square with the frame and square, as accurate as I can be. And what I'll do is I'll put a little tack right here in the middle, and since I have a crack all the way across, once that tack freezes, then I'll take this off and I'll do a 3, 4, 5 triangle, and I can tap it whichever way I need to make sure I have a right angle. So that corner has a little tack weld so it can't move, and I came out here and measured 3 feet and put the little mark with the Sharpie and put a clamp to hold my tape better. And I came over here and measured 4 feet, and if I run my tape across diagonal, is exactly 5 feet, so I know it's the right angle. I did have to move it a little bit, and this weight is kind of holding it.
with the bottom and the two ends of both gates welded. I got them kind of clamped here, kind of precariously. I need to bend the arch. The top is going to have an arch, well, a sag, a curve, however you want to call it. The middle of the gate is like 13 inches shorter than the two hinge sides. So I'm going to bend that, and I'll bend it all in one piece to try to get a prettier curve. Now my original pipe was schedule 40, and that was good because it gives me a lot of heavy metal to weld the hinges to make sure they don't fail. And then I bought the more steel for the bottom and the side, and I probably could have bought the schedule 10 or the tubing as they call it, because it really won't be doing much. But I went ahead and bought schedule 40. It makes it just easier for me to weld without burning through. But the top piece, this long piece, is a schedule 10, or defense company calls it tubing. I call it schedule 10. I really don't know what it is. I'm going to try to bend it so it'll fit this curve. It'll go high, low, and then back up high. And when it fits the curve good, then I will cut it in half, and then I'll fit these miters and we'll weld it out. Trying to get a pretty bend on this thing was kind of interesting. Even though it was 21 foot long and it seemed to be fairly light, it was not easy to bend. And so right off the bat, I put like a little kink in it. You can see it's bent too much there. So I stepped on one end and I pulled it outside, turned it around end for end, and did some stepping on the other side. And basically what happens is I got a pretty good curve in the middle, but not on the ends. So then I brought my forklift out in the parking lot and told it to sit, stay. It's very obedient. And just working it back and forth and back and forth. Got a pretty good curve on it. So I cut it in half. I fit it to the one frame, and in this photo it's all welded up. So then I'm putting the other frame directly on top. I'll clamp it down real well, and then I will take the other half of the arched piece, set it on top, and see what I have to do to make the two bends match. I did have to tweak it a little bit. It took a few trips to the forklift to get the bend just right, and it's not just right, but it's close enough. And my cuts weren't perfect. We got them welded up on top, so now I'm gonna take them both off, remove the bottom one because it's 100% welded, flip the top one over and weld the other side of the top one. So at this point in the build, these frames are getting to be a little bit heavy, not too bad, but they're really awkward. It's hard to get them to go where you want them to go. It's hard not to slam them on the ground, and they're going to get a lot heavier when I put the infill in them. So looking forward to dealing with the heavier versions, which are coming up. I'm going to spare you a lot of welding footage because one thing, I'm not very good at it, and two, my camera's not very good at picking it up. But welding this thick pipe to this thin pipe, you just had to do multiple tacks and let them overlap and then clean them up. And that was the fun part. It starts looking like I knew what I was doing almost. Okay, so I got my first piece of square stock in place. I'm supporting it by scraps of the same material. I'm making sure that the pipe is tight to the table and the square stock is tight to the spacers and tight to the pipe. And I'm going to use the TIG torch and just braze this. It's just to support some wire mesh. It'll be plenty strong enough, and I'm less likely to burn it up. If I try to weld that thin metal, I'll make a mess of it. My highway mesh was just delivered. These are 8x20 and it's number 4 wire, which is one step up from Home Depot little bitty wire. They're a little rusty. It's a little disappointing, and they got some bends in them, but we'll work with it. I'll just have to wire brush them before I paint, probably.
This may not look scary, but if you saw how sharp every single end of that wire where I cut it with the grinder is, you'd appreciate how anxious I was moving this stuff around. It doesn't want to move around, it wants to grab on every little corner in the whole shop. So I took my time, wore some good gloves, pretty careful, and in the end, on both layers of both gates, all the wire installed, I didn't bleed, not one single time. Amazing.
Okay, I've got a little bit of a conundrum. The wire mesh is not square. So if I make it run straight across the bottom, it doesn't run too straight on the vertical. So I think I'm going to make it run straight on the vertical. I don't think I can rack this mesh. And we'll just let the bottom do what the bottom does. So I think I'm going to put a couple of tacks. I'm going to try to use the MIG gun. Put a couple of tacks to hold it steady, and then trim this stuff in place with the grinder. Cut pretty easy outside. It'll cut a lot easier standing up straight in the shade inside. First layer on the first gate is on. It went pretty well, except it's got this serious damage right in the middle. Kind of frustrating. I'm used to dealing with my old junk that's damaged. You buy something new, you expect it to be flat. But I guess I can always cut that out and put another square in. And it reached all the way to right here. You can see where I've done my little butt welds. So this little triangle is the second piece. So now I'm going to put the second layer on top of this layer. Yeah, I've just spliced in this corner piece. It's this big. So I put it on top and moved it around till it fit well, and marked these cuts with a Sharpie, moved them and cut them, and then I tacked wherever I could. Now this straight one still overlaps this straight one, and I'll cut it really accurate here, 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 and here, so I can do a little butt weld. This piece will go away. This little piece will be butt welded to there, and you won't even hardly be able to see it.
I went ahead and welded every intersection between the top mat and the bottom mat. May not have been necessary, but it was fairly easy and quick to do. Some of the spots I need to pick them up tight with a little stick in my arm as a lever, and some of them touch, so it just rolls along pretty good.
This half of the gate is pretty much welded up, and it looks pretty good. But I got problems when I come down to this end. Something terribly bent. You'll notice my spacing here is way less than here, and I can't get them in the middle. And at first I thought I just needed to push on it, but looking closely, this bottom piece of wire where it had that damage in the middle, it like shifted over. So the whole piece of wire is jacked up. It kind of irritates me. So I'm sitting there scratching my head trying to figure out how to move it. But I think I need to unweld the bottom wire that's welded on this perimeter, on this end, and somehow or another pull it straight. I might have to cut it at those bent pieces, just cut them loose so it'll be a little more flexible. Let's see what we can do. That was terrible. I wish I would have seen that before I got so far along. I ended up cutting totally out that bottom section. I cut all the welds around the perimeter, and I arbitrarily set it in the right spot somewhere over here and welded it, and then worked my way both ways. So this is where it came from the factory, and this is where it needed to go. And this is where it was welded, and this is where I had to push it. On every one, but this one, just to make it square. It wasn't square when it got here. I wish I'd have caught it. But we got it fixed up. There's still some welds out in the middle. I'm going to have to stand it up to, oh yeah, look, when I cut it, now that was a 1/16 of an inch cut, but now look how much is missing here, and there, and there, and there. So I'm gonna have to put little pieces in there. It's gonna be a pain in the rear. But we gotta do what we gotta do. It's gotta be pretty. I'm getting ready to try to put this wire back together where I had to cut it. In a situation like this, instead of me trying to weld in a little piece, I'll cut it here and here, put in a whole piece, and my weld won't be so noticeable. And this one I'm going to cut way back to here and way back to here. And this one we'll just do a little, just cut these bad pieces out. Okay, removing the bent pieces left us with a hole here, 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 here. Gate 1 is 100% welded out. It's not cleaned up yet, but it's welded out. And gate 2 I'm getting ready to start on. And the one thing I need to do, not on the hinge end, but on the strike end where they come together, they have to be a perfect mirror image or it'll look like donkey do. So the easiest way to do that, I think, is for me to take the first gate, turn it upside down, and put the frame right on top of it, and put the wire mesh in the frame and have it match the wire that on the gate that's below it. The whole gate doesn't have to match, you won't see that, but this first 6-8 inches really needs to be identical or it's just not gonna look right. So I got the second gate upside down on top of the first gate, or I turned the first gate over so they mirror image now. And I cut my first piece of wire. I just cut 45s off of each side. It's real ungainly to work with. For one thing, every time you cut it, it's like a razor. So it's looking pretty good. I got it close to lining up. So what I think I'm gonna do is just cut all the excess off, maybe make it all 1 inch long because it's just so hard to handle. And get it trimmed closer, and then maybe trim one corner and tack it and look at it again and cut this line. This line is the most important one because this is what you're going to see when the gates are closed. If they don't line up, it's going to look bad. I tell you, messing with this stuff is pretty trying. I got the pattern to line up just about perfect over here, got it tacked off, and went along, and I was tacking it over here and it wasn't too bad. But right in the middle, it was like way off. Like this bar is here, it should be here. So I cut a whole bunch of them loose. This is factory stuff. Anyway, this is what I'm dealing with. Okay, we have one pair of welded up gates. They are completely assembled, and I'm gonna end this video. It's getting kind of long. But I still have a lot of cleaning to do. I got to get all the rust off of this wire. I got to clean my welds back a little bit. Some of them are pretty ugly. And paint. And and bring them and prop them up in the driveway and get the hinges welded. So, it's been interesting. A little frustrating because of the wire, the condition of the wire. I thought I was buying something new. I didn't think I was going to have to fight with it so hard. But I think it came out pretty good.
Okay, kind of back to the beginning with the steel pipe inside the brick column. This is next door. This is my driveway. And when we hauled the houseboat out of here, we had the gates off, but the houseboat still hit that U-bolt that's sticking out of the brick. It's welded to the steel, and it broke the brick. And I was saying, oh my God, I got to redo everything because the gates won't line up. But apparently the steel pipe snapped right back into place. It must have twisted and snapped back. The gates fit perfectly. So the bricks are cosmetic. They need to be repaired, but it's not that big a deal. So if you have the option, put a steel pipe in the middle of a brick column. It may save you some angst later on. And thanks for watching.